All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. Gee, what are we talking about today, Sam?
Well, it's been a slow news week, but all of a sudden the internet's full of security experts. So I want to stay in my lane because I'm just a snatch specialist. Uh, but I do have some comments on it that aren't related to the actual logistics of it. Though there's going to be some of that brought up. If you want a good breakdown, watch Tim Kennedy on Modern Wisdom. He
Hmm.
does a great breakdown of everything from a relatively neutral position, even though you know where his allegiances lie.
Yeah,
Uh,
I saw that when I was looking around at stuff this morning, and I didn't have time to watch it. I'd watched some other stuff, listen to some other people. So we can talk about the details if we want, but there are a lot of quality people out there, but there's also a lot of noise.
hmm
So I would say, so for instance, one of the earliest good videos I saw was the channel Task and Purpose. They also have a big website. It's especially a bunch of former vets who do military and national security type news. And they did a good breakdown of, okay, here's what we know, here's the speculation, here's why we're speculating this, and here's actual video that make us think this or that. So
hmm
that was the reason that one was particularly good, because they made it abundantly clear when they were speculating and when they were giving the facts as known.
Yeah,
But
and that's one of the things that makes this a unique situation, not just because of the experts that are popping up everywhere, but the fact that so much of it was caught on camera, and we're in a different
mm-hmm,
day and age. You
mm-hmm.
know, this would be like someone, was in the room with John Wilkes Booth,
Yeah,
It's
well, like one of the early things to come out were a number of specifically there was a BBC reporter who was interviewing someone who said, "We saw this guy climbing up on the roof with a rifle and we were notifying police, hey, and at first blush you're let's take that with a grain of salt. It's just one dude being interviewed." And then personal cell phone video started to be posted of this actually happening.
hmm Yeah, so
Uh,
let me formally introduce the whole episode. So we're obviously going to talk about the assassination attempt. You wanted to talk some RNC. We had
mm-hmm,
a request from another viewer about Julian Assange, and I think
mm-hmm.
actually that connects very well to the assassination attempt talk. And actually, what we're talking about with the assassination attempt talk is the conversation around it actually really connects to him. And we've got a VP pick, which is interesting, and there's good and bad about it, and it's really kind of in line with the VP conversation we just had. So now my take on this is from all of the internet's the videos, everything that happened, and the way it went down. The hard part about all this is no matter what conspiracy theory camp you're in, conspiracy theory not in the derogative way, in the which which uh which camp are you in, how this played out and who's responsible. uh there's fuel for every fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's fuel if you're the it's a stage thing. That's the least fuel, but there's fuel for that. There's fuel for the DEI incompetence camp. There's fuel for the it's an inside job camp. There's
Mm-hmm.
fuel for the for every fire that you can put up. There's some fuel for it.
Yeah. And the more that comes out, the more WTF it gets, because that can't possibly be true. And then it's, oh hey, haha, it's confirmed. What does that mean? Because that's nuts. For instance, it turns out, and this is from multiple sources, and I haven't seen her statement, but apparently the director of the Secret Service, who's been under fire for a while now, confirmed this,
Careful your
that
words here.
yeah. Um, Turns out there was a counter sniper team inside the building that the shooter was on top
Well,
of.
that was the staging area for the police.
that was one of the staging areas. But no, here's where it gets exceptionally dumb is that because of the sloped roof of that building, it was deemed a safety hazard. So there was no team on top of that building.
Which brings me to my first visual, because that's the things we can talk about. Her statement.
Yeah.
This is the building that was a slope hazard, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
building we had people on. That
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
this is something we can talk about, is how stupid do they think we are? Because I was going to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up her one of her bios here that I had pulled up, because she's got an actual decent CV for someone who had the job. She's been with the Secret Service since 1995, so she's been in before the Wokey stuff came
Mm-hmm.
in. She was part of, it says she was part of the team that pulled Cheney out of something during 9/11. But we don't know what role she had, because I'm pretty sure at that time, uh, women weren't allowed in the jump on the guy, jump on the what do they call them,
The body people, I think is what they call them, that they
yeah.
literally protect the protectee with their bodies. Yeah, they shield.
So whether she was boots on the ground or kind of an administrative role at that time, they're not clear on, and we don't know. But there was a long thing, and then she worked for PepsiCo, which, I mean, I can't think of any big incidents that happened at PepsiCo since she was there, and then she's back. Uh, I, I was going to give her the benefit of the doubt because she's got that impressive CV,
Mm-hmm.
but then she comes out and makes that statement, and I'm just like, oh, come on. Can we get any more incompetent? And how dumb do you think the American people are?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the roof was too sloped, so we didn't put protection for the president up there. First of all, you have people that are supposed to jump in front of bullets, and you're afraid of a sloped roof?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one thing. And there are way. I just had a roofer on my roof putting up tarps to protect us from the rain because we have holes in our roof from the hurricane. You know how sloped my roof is? It's like this. And there are people that can do that job, and there are protective equipment you can use on a sloped roof.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. But then you put it side by side, but with what we already had her people on.
My gut kind of from just watching things over the weekend, and I mentioned Task and Purpose. Also, I've mentioned him before. Dan Bongino is great on these kinds of things because he has what he calls the 24-hour rule is keep your mouth shut when there's a big event. Keep your mouth shut for at least 24 hours until you actually have facts.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often when these kinds of things happen, there's a rush to, I mean, for crying out loud, you were sending me headline screenshots of morons on, was Politico one of them, of there was a loud noise. There
I'm
was
bringing those up right now. Hold on.
Yeah, so there was this rush of stupidity, um and Bongino, he did a brief little quick podcast over the weekend to say, hey, before we know too many of the facts, let me point out some of the moronic misconceptions that are already flying around out there, because this is a guy who worked
Well,
protective details for two different presidents.
I'm wondering that what happened to the real guy who's behind the picture they released for the shooter, who turned out to be completely incorrect.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Oh, I
some
didn't see that.
bigger guy with a beard. It kind of looked like he could be someone related to me, but a little bit chubbier.
Hmm. I
And
hadn't
and
seen that.
yeah, that was like immediately after. And then someone posted the picture on Twitter, where you can post these things, the picture of the guy with a hole in his head, and it was a completely different dude. And then they came out with the real name, and it looks like the guy with the hole in his head. So it's like,
So one of the idiotic misconceptions was that, oh, they can't fire until fired upon. No, that's moronic. Uh, Bongino pointed out, because Bongino also worked New York City police intelligence, and so he knows from both the local law enforcement and the Secret Service federal side of it that any law enforcement officer, if they see an immediate threat, we've mentioned before the people who lost their mind because the cop shot this black teenage girl who was literally in the process of trying to stab someone. You don't have to wait until the victim gets stabbed before you can shoot the assailant. No, no, there's an immediate threat of danger. And Bongino pointed out that with federal people, with Secret Service, there's even less of that. It's, oh no, danger, pew pew.
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to start with a different direction, but you brought
Jeez,
up the director first
yeah,
and her thing. How dumb do these are not our friends, okay, as the American people.
uh-huh.
You have her saying, "Oh, you're so dumb. Oh, there was a slope on the roof. Well, that's why we got
Mm-hmm,
the slope on the roof was why he was hidden from the sniper for so long.
mm-hmm.
That's why you should have somebody on the roof. But here's the for those that are just listening, USA Today. Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startles former president and the crowd. Uh,
Yeah.
Donald Trump has been, this is AP. Donald Trump has been escorted off the stage by Secret Service during rally after loud noises ring out in crowd. Not that one yet. Trump removed from stage. Oh, that was the USA Today again. All right, so those were the big headlines I brought up. There was another one where I thought I had it, but it was Trump falls during
Oh yeah.
during
Jeez.
rally, and it was trying to kind of like equate it to the all the memes coming about Biden falling, and it was just so tone deaf. Now this one here was my favorite because this goes more along with the statement about the slope roofs. How dumb do you think we are, and how racist are you? This is Forbes magazine. Will
Uh,
surviving gunfire be Donald Trump's next appeal to black voters?
you
Really?
just hurt my head.
And look at the title of Sean Harper there. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert. What do we say about DEI? It's racist.
Jeez.
The people who are in charge of it are racist. They're the racist ones. So if there's anybody in our audience that is a person of color, I mean, if you're listening to us, you probably already agree. But
Yeah, but
yeah, they're the racist
jeez.
ones.
Okay, so um I think let me regain my train of thought. Okay, so
You
my
were on
my
Bongino. I was bringing up what
yeah.
you started with. Yeah.
So Bongino talked about the inner layer of security, basically, which is the primary uh, uh, purpose of the Secret Service is that inner layer of security. There's a lot of talk. How did he even get in the gun? And well, the metal detectors, that is a pretty small circle, right, of people who can get close. But and here's where uh everything is falling apart and never ascribe malice to what can be attributed to incompetence is I haven't heard anyone really talk about this per se. I've heard people kind of talking all around it is uh this is this is the task and purpose video, and I don't have the sound on because I just want the visuals here. So here you see the sniper team up on the roof, um and you can see them adjusting down, and they go through and they show the video of how close the shooter was and how you know all the people on my side are posting all the memes of Trump is anointed and protected by God. Well, you could see it because this was a stupidly easy shot, and he just happened to move his head briefly. Okay. um and in the task and purpose video, they cite a security expert, retired law enforcement officer who's talking about how these different groups have different zones of responsibility. And now, for if you're just listening, somebody got cell phone footage of the sniper team, and they're having to adjust significantly. Okay, because and now they're laying out a circle of distances here. You look at the scopes that team is using and the rifles they're using, they're looking out, okay? Because and this is tying in the Bongino stuff, is the advanced team would have gone in and said, okay, here are all of our potential spots of danger. Okay. Bongino mentioned, one time when he was still on the Secret Service and he was an advanced team, and they had local law enforcement in boats going up and down a river that was like half a mile away, just in case, because they recognized that as a potential point where a shooter or someone with bad intention could get in. So anyway, long-winded way of saying what it looks like to me is this was a cluster F of federal local cooperation, because that medium ring was someone's responsibility. So there's all this, yeah, there's some serious problems with the Secret Service, but the Secret Service, the body guys are right there to get close. And then if you watch the video, you see a couple of guys in black tactical gear rush up onto the stage. I can't remember what Bongino called those guys, but that's a particular team that when the body guys smother the protectee, then you have these guys rush in looking for additional close in threats. And then the sniper team, like I said, they had to adjust because they're looking way out, because someone else was probably supposed to be responsible for that, what I'm calling that medium tier, that's just outside that protective zone where they've got the metal detectors all set up and they're screening the crowd and all that. So somebody dropped the ball big time there. And my assumption is we're going to find out it was gross incompetence. You are muted.
A lot of people were talking about the guy missing. I want to bring this up because you're talking about head movement and stuff. This is from the Twitterverse. I got it on Timcast, but I think he credits the person who put this together. But this gives us an overhead that's actually synced with his head movement and the bullet right here. So it's in slow mo, and there I didn't put the sound on, but the guy didn't miss.
Mm-hmm.
He hit his spot.
Mm-hmm.
That's his eyeball right there.
Mm-hmm.
That jerky head movement was the difference. And
Mm-hmm.
if you watch him during the debate, you see he does that. This is a Trump thing. He's like, oh, that kind of bird like head movement he does when he's being sarcastic or really emoting, and his
Mm-hmm.
own mannerism saved him there. I hate you brought up the Christian divine intervention thing because someone else died. And if you use that argument, then you're saying Trump's more important than that person in God's eyes. But you know, there is that part of the argument. That's,
Well, that is, but we've taught what,
by the way,
fitting,
a
I
guy who
guess.
died like a man.
I was about to say fitting
Yeah.
that last time we were talking about masculinity,
Mhm.
and I got choked up. His daughter had written, I don't know if it was an open letter, if it was sent to people, but I heard Glenn Beck reading a letter from his daughter, talking about the kind of man he was. And children say their dad is a hero. Mine actually was, because he literally
Mhm.
used his body to protect me, because that bullet would have hit his wife or daughter, and he was covering them up.
Yeah, and this is where this is one reason I hate our little delay to let things simmer, and also just our schedule is I had it queued up in my head, and then Poole did it last night or did it Monday night. It's the words "mighty mighty boss tone." I've never been tested, but I would like to think if I would pass,
Mm,
right? It's
yeah,
just he passed the test, and good on him, but also
yeah,
sucks majorly.
yeah.
So.
um,
Okay, let me get with the first crowd that I said was the weakest, that everything was
okay,
staged to
yeah.
get his poll numbers up. First of all, someone died. But let us go ahead and if you're one of those people, you probably think he is literally Hitler anyways. So you probably think he's the most evil man on earth and he would do something like that. Let somebody
Mm,
die on his behalf so he could get into the White House again. So let's say you're right on that. That's not how it would go down. You wouldn't have a bullet missing his ear by
Oh yeah.
missing his eyeball and hitting him in the ear, or
And
even just being close enough that the concussive force took his
yeah.
ear out. Uh, and even add to that the having to time a head movement
Yeah.
for it to look even more real.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust in that.
People saying that are the same people who say, well, why did the cop have to kill him? Why couldn't he just shoot him in the leg? You're an idiot who's never held a gun. I don't even know if you've ever played like Time Crisis at the arcade.
Or been to paintball
Jeez.
or whatever,
Yes.
it's but so let's say that this is how it would have gone down. If it was all staged, they would have got some patsy, which would have been your little 20-year-old guy, which we had another line of theories that has him still as a patsy, right?
Hmm.
You would have had some patsy that gets up there and does this thing. You would have him highly trained, super highly trained to be able to hit a mosquito off your ear from that far away in the wind with all those conditions and a perfectly timed head movement, but you would have shot him first. You would have shot him right before he shot. You would have known the timing and shot him first so you didn't risk getting shot in the head. And you would have said, counter snipers stop assassination attempt. That would have been the headline. Not barely missed
Hmm.
and then sniper was killed. That's would have been that would have been how it goes down, not the other way around.
Is there any more that you want to talk about the assassination attempt itself before I start to go into some of the bigger picture stuff that's pissing me off?
I guess I'm going to make a statement on the one of the other theory round fires that's going is it was all set up by the deep state, and or I'm not even going to say the Dems. I'm going to say the deep state because he, this kind of takes away the argument. Oh, he was a registered Republican. Oh, he donated to the Democratic Party. Da, 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 da. If it's the deep state, it could be either,
Hmm.
or it could be both. It could be someone like Nikki Haley that rhymes with Nikki Haley, who would who would be our Republican candidate had he been taken out that day right now. Uh, so or any number of things. So if you're going down that route, here's going to be our evidence. Not anything we saw that day.
Hmm.
Not anything logistically that could be still contributed to incompetence. Here's our evidence. He doesn't make it to the election because there's no way they're letting him get in office if it was
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Because he would get in there and be like, I need the evidence. Someone tried to kill me and I'm not stopping anywhere, and that's it.
Hmm. Well, I'd also, you say Nikki Haley, actually, if this had been successful, literally like the day or two before the convention starts, the convention would have been cranked up to 11, and none of the primary candidates have enough delegates to secure the nomination. It would have been a contested election, and given what I suspect the thought process would be for most conservatives and Republicans going into the convention in a situation like that, I suspect it would have ended up being DeSantis because he is the most vocal fighter and the most vocal anti-establishment, anti-deep
Unless
state.
they took the path of let's do the unity route and
Yeah,
get back to good, which is establishment.
so if you're going down that tinfoil hat rabbit hole, you're going to have to assume that there's a big chunk of the GOP swamp that was in on it to make sure that was the outcome of the convention. Because in a it kind of like we have historical precedent for this, that LBJ was not well liked. He was not a very um successful national figure politically. He was picked by JFK to help secure Southern votes. That's why he was there. That's why he was the vice president. So, but when JFK was assassinated, there was so much goodwill towards him. LBJ won in a landslide. I mean, one of the biggest landslides in U.S. Presidential electoral history because of that goodwill. So, there would be a wave of that, going through, unless, like I say, you go way down this tinfoil hat rabbit hole and assume a big chunk of the GOP establishment was in on it.
Okay, so let's close the incompetence loop, and that might lead you into your meta point. Okay, so uh so much happened. First of all, it was the why wasn't this covered? That was the
Mm-hmm.
easy one. Why wasn't this building covered? And how did he get there and get up there with nobody doing anything? The cop that went up there, that went up the ladder, looked at him and ran away. Did they recruit him from Uvalde by your meme you sent me? Right. I did see those memes that the security
Yeah,
crew was
yeah,
recruited
heard a
from
lot of that.
Uvalde. Yeah. And Kennedy made was it Kennedy that made this point? No, it was Black uh Blackwater guy that was on Bet David. He said that cop didn't have to confront the guy. He could have ran that back down that ladder and discharged his firearm into the ground, and it would have stopped the whole thing.
He had a radio. I mean, for crying out
Yeah,
loud, did he call it in at least?
yeah. Whatever happened, well, there's part of the theory that the miss happened, although we just showed that it really wasn't a miss, was because the guy rushed his shot because the cop went up there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, yeah, he could have fired off 5 rounds into the ground, and the whole thing would have been diffused because they would have jumped on Trump right then, right, and pulled him off the stage before he was shot in the head, right, or the ear, I should say. Uh, but the DEI incompetence route, this is something where you can actually merge two together. Was it the deep state or was it incompetence? You can set up a situation
Mm.
to be okay. Maybe it doesn't happen, but we're going to set the stage that it could happen, because his detail was actually not all Secret Service. They were, because they were thin on qualified people. They pulled people from Homeland Security. The woman with her holster that everybody's making fun of, she's not Secret Service. She
Mm.
she
That
was,
that was something I'd heard as well.
yeah,
Yeah, that
uh,
that they were having to pull in other um yeah, yeah. 'Cause Bongino made this point, I don't think over the weekend. I think it was like on his Monday or Tuesday podcast that he made the point that, look, these federal agents are still trained federal agents, sure. So, they're good in that regard, but they're not Secret Service. All we do, we Secret Service, all we do is train for this. Other federal agents train for other things.
yeah, and
So,
then the cops that were incompetent on the perimeter. I mean, Chief Wiggum is a stereotype in The Simpsons for a reason, because
yeah.
look around your local law enforcement. There are some really
Well,
qualified people, but the
mhm.
majority are
Well, and then you look
tenured
at
and,
what was the shooting in Florida years back? The school shooting where
oh
the
gosh.
the school safety officer was hiding in a closet, and the sheriff showed up and didn't do anything, and you know I can't remember where that was. And, and then years later, you have Uvalde, a very similar situation. So yeah,
And then
yeah.
take into account that two impromptu events include that needed Secret Service attention were scheduled for that day. One of them being Jill Biden, not far away, so it pulled resources. So, all of these things happening at once. That could be another one. Is I saw some Dems posting stuff like, if we wanted to take him out, we wouldn't have got some 20-year-old, nerd or whatever. Da, 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 da. I'm like, that's exactly who you would get, because you
That
need someone who knows he's going to die going
that
up there.
actually leads me into my first meta point that pissed me off and made me so depressed, because I'm not in the least bit surprised, one, that it happened, and two, what the reaction to it is. Because let us let us go down memory lane here. Oh, geez, I have too many windows and tabs open. Which is the one that I'm wanting to? Here we go. All right, let's start here. All right. Um, And one of the frustrations that I've expressed before is with the lawfare against Trump is, he has been saying even recently, and others, if they can do this to, you know, millionaire, billionaire, former president, what can they do to you? And I'm sitting here yelling, they already are doing it to you. Look at us what is happening to the J6 people. Look at us what is
Mm-hmm.
happening to people who showed up to school boards to protest stuff that was going on. Okay, and as usual, I tend to get the most left biased sources I can, and one of the greatest left biased sources is Wikipedia. So you may not remember this. Um, Aaron Danielson was shot and killed during some of the Summer of Love Antifa
Mm.
BLM stuff. Okay, and you go to the Wikipedia page, and it's all about how he was a far right person, and there was a conflict, and then they also go into this. Um, Trump sent the U.S. Marshals in to assassinate this guy. It, it's absurd. And then you had a Voice of America, which is super left, and this entire really long article is about how this is just an aberration. These far right people, they're the danger. Antifa has never done anything bad. They're to uh totally dedicated to peaceful protesting. Cue the CNN guy standing in front of a burning car. There is literally video of the guy saying, "Hey, we got one here. We got a Trumper." And then bang bang.
And to assassinate, they knocked on his door and he came out firing. That's
Uh that was a different.
is that a different?
This guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
shooter.
the
The
shooter. Yeah,
shooter.
yeah.
Yeah, when US Marshals went with an arrest warrant to get the shooter, it was suicide by cop. This
Hmm.
was not them going after him. No, this it was suicide by cop. All right. Hey, anyone remember this? The California man who drove all the way to DC to try and assassinate Brett Kavanaugh? Okay. Uh, this is in the Wayback Machine that I had forgotten. You might not even remember this. The Family Research Council, which is a um, pro-life, primarily pro-life, pro-traditional marriage organization, conservative think tank lobby group. And um, back in 2013, this nutso went to DC and he said, I wanted to kill as many people as possible. It gets weirder and more creepy. He'd bought a gun and learned how to use it. He loaded 3 magazines and he had stopped by Chick-fil-A to pick up 15 sandwiches, which he planned to smear in the dying faces of staffers he expected to kill at the Family Research Council. Something good old CNN doesn't point out here is that he also had a bunch of pamphlets and literature from the Southern Poverty Law Center, who had labeled the Family Research Council as a hate group for their opposition to gay marriage. Hey, anyone remember that time that a volunteer for Bernie Sanders' campaign fired 70 rounds at GOP lawmakers while they were out practicing for a congressional softball game? And literally the only reason we didn't have, if I remember right, there was something like 20 GOP. So that would have been something like a fifth of the GOP uh, uh, contingent at the time. Something like a fifth of them would have been assassinated. Except it just so happened that Steve Scalise was there. And since he is a member of leadership, he had a protective detail who were able to pin down the shooter long enough for additional law enforcement to arrive. I brought this up before. Does anyone remember the guy who ambushed and shot Dallas police officers?
Yeah, during the Summer of Love.
Something they don't talk about in, of course, Wikipedia is that this was in this was in 2016.
Oh no. Oh,
Yeah.
was this after
So
Hands Up, Don't Shoot?
this was part of it. It was so uh there were some BLM protests basically that were happening, and there was a police presence to monitor the protest and the march. I don't remember where they were marching to, but there was a couple of um police killings, one in Louisiana, one in Minnesota, that had sparked this latest round that, wasn't that different from the kind of the origins of BLM, which was Hands Up, Don't
Trayvon,
Shoot, was Michael Brown back
yeah,
in
Michael Brown. Yeah.
2013, I think that was.
Well, it was
What they don't
Trayvon
talk,
Martin before that.
yeah, they make a point to point out here that he was a Army Reserve Afghan war veteran and that he was angry over police shootings. What they don't mention is that the his family said that he had gone off to college and gotten radicalized. And they even cited the I don't remember who it was, but someone at the BET Awards of that year had gone off on this massive, you know, cops are literally out hunting for black men to kill. And then the last one here, most recent one, Matt admits to running over teenager he's suspected of links to extreme right political groups. He got 5 years for pleading guilty to manslaughter because he ran over an 18-year-old kid where there was this anti-Trump protest thing going on in this small town. And he ran this kid down. And remember, I played his bail hearing because it was so infuriating and disgusting because his concern was how this was going to ruin his life. And then finally, you can't see the article because I'm damned if I'm going to pay the New York Times to get behind their paywall. But I did want to show the headline: a small town's tragedy distorted by Trump's megaphone. Point of all that is time after time after time, these violent events were perpetrated by crazies, left leaning people who were radicalized by radical language. And hold on a second, I seem to recall that because of his language, President Trump was impeached for a second time because of what happened on January 6th. And one of the court cases he's facing, the one in DC, is over that, is for inciting that. And yet, the mainstream corporate media continues to insist that the danger is pro-life groups, conservative Catholics, former veterans, people who go to their school boards.
Let me talk about language for a second, because what did I send you the morning of the assassination attempt before it had happened about what we could talk about today? What did I send you in a text? I had just finished mowing the lawn.
I don't know. It has gone completely out of my brain with all this that has
The
happened.
Buffalo shooter. Okay, so one of my clients had sent me a Tucker Carlson podcast thing with a DEI defector whistleblower or whatever. And because that was the last thing that I had listened to on Spotify, when I put my earbuds in to mow the lawn, the next episode of him came up, which was actually his speech in Australia when he went down there the day Julian Assange was freed. And I was like, oh, I'll listen to this, because we had a request from someone who had listened to do an episode on Assange. So I went and listened to it through. And at the end of it, in the reporter questions, was that lady reporter that asked him about him inciting the violence of the Buffalo shooter with his great replacement theory rhetoric. And she said, because you said that they're going to come in and replace white people. And his response, and this made the Twitterverse rounds, was kind of destroyed her, because he said, you show me where I said white. I said American. And he said US, that's white, black, blah, 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 blah. And we do get from kind of the manifesto that there was an influence with the Buffalo shooter over this. And you were talking about rhetoric and media and what's reported and everything. And I'm like, yeah, this is what we said about Trump 2020. Are you judging the man or what the media told you about the man?
Mhm.
And so who is actually responsible for the Buffalo shooter? Is it Tucker Carlson talking about American jobs? Or is the media telling you that Tucker Carlson is talking about white jobs? Which one of those is responsible? Because one is correct and one is a distortion of the truth that incites violence. And so when we talk about this situation, they're like, even CNN right after this is saying, well, it's his own language that brought this on. It's like, no, is
Yes.
it you're reporting on his language?
Yes, his language. So, and I'm gonna steal someone else's work here because um a number of the podcasts I listen to had montages of and not just left crazies, but mainstream media and politicians and their language talking about Trump. And this one's relatively tame compared to some of the others I heard, but this one was the easiest to find.
Do you have sound? You're not sharing with sound.
Son of a deadly. All right, hold on a second. I always yell at you, okay, boomer, for that. So,
You're older than I am, and
all
you're
right.
a grandpa. I'm not.
Hey, you know what? All right, hold on a
You're a
second.
grandpa twice over, and I'm still not.
You know what? Shut up. Okay, so let's try
For
this
those in the
again.
audience, I did have kids like 10 years later. So
Okay, they moved the button. There it is. Get it. All right. Here we go. All right, so let's listen to the mainstream media.
Of course, it's Trump is a Nazi time again.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. I mean, that is Mussolini, Hitler-like language.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity.
Echoing Hitler's words.
Listen to this. Well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right. Echoing the hateful rhetoric of Adolf Hitler.
It echoes Hitler.
That's the kind of language Hitler used in Mein Kampf.
About vermin and Hitler and Mussolini.
That's a horrifying clip. That's a fascist clip.
Just going full on Hitler.
From Hitler's Germany.
We just need to say, for the record, that the term vermin was really effectively used by Adolf Hitler.
Echo dictators like Hitler.
With language evoking authoritarian figures like Adolf Hitler and
Adolf Hitler.
Donald Trump parroted the autocratic language of Adolf Hitler.
Talk about the brilliance of Hitler's generals.
Correct.
General Kelly, yeah.
So what does
So if Trump has to be impeached for what he said or didn't say on January 6th and is being charged, being prosecuted for it, when are every one of those people going to be arrested?
Well, by the way, since this event, he actually the Supreme Court ruled in his favor. So there is that part. So he's not being charged on that. But
I wasn't sure about because there are so many cases and I can't remember which is which and what's going on.
yeah,
I thought it was the documents case that was
oh, you
thrown
might be
out.
right. It's the presidential immunity.
Because-
No, it was presidential immunity.
So
No, the
Nah,
documents
you're gonna
case
put
got thrown out by another judge because of the prosecutor involved was
see, this is what I wanted to talk about, but we're talking about this is that I read the opinions of that immunity case and it actually ties into what we're talking about here because some of the ludicrous overreaction on Twitter was, oh, so Biden should just assassinate Trump Biden should just drone strike Trump because he can and he'd be immune because that's because the Supreme Court said so. Okay, first of all, that was just a week or two before someone actually took a shot at Trump, you psychopaths. Secondly, the Supreme Court very clearly said for official acts. I'm going to go out on a limb here and saying drone striking your political opponent is not an official act.
But he's a threat to democracy. Come on.
Exactly.
No,
what
and
do you expect?
This is one place where I'll elaborate on language. Listen to them talk, right? Our democracy. Key word there is R. R is not R as in the American people. OUR is R as in Biden, Kamala, the deep state, our democracy, the way we want it to be. That's a broad term. But you as the public here, it is, I am one of R. You're not one of R. You've never been one of R. This is where I kind of really do want to, and I'm going to give a shout out here to John 005, who gave us the comment on our presidential debate thread. This is where Julian Assange comes into this, because what was his big contribution was showing all the things that aren't R when it comes to what the government does. WikiLeaks exposed everything that they're doing that is not in the best interest of us as the people.
So
it is the best interest of the people in power.
Fun fact that I heard when that deal was announced is, and coincidentally, a bunch of documents from the DNC leaks, remember those that WikiLeaks posted, those disappeared from WikiLeaks's website.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go with this once we're done with this part of the conversation, because and that's why I thought it was connected, because I hate this deal. I wanted him free just like everybody else, but I hate this deal.
I didn't. Here's why is I think a lot of people conflate what Assange did and what Snowden did. Okay. Snowden very specifically exposed a particular program, a particular NSA program that was illegally, and still is so far as anyone knows, because the gutless Republicans and the authoritarian Democrats continue to refuse to do anything about it.
No, they just do it out loud now. They repassed
true.
the
yeah, the other way this ties in is they're still monitoring all of us and they can't catch something like this. How many times has someone been in our he was on our radar and then still went?
That's the difference with this one, is they're insisting that he had zero presence.
Yeah.
Anywhere. A 20-year-old kid not having any presence online.
Where I haven't looked at this stuff in a while, but there are numerous reports that Assange is a super duper creepo, and that he is more about the fame, the infamy, and the prestige of exposing all these things. Also, this was before the Trump Russia insanity, so keep that in mind, that even before that, there were credible people in the national security intelligence space saying that WikiLeaks was a front for Russian FSB. That WikiLeaks was used by Russian intelligence and counterintelligence to undermine and weaken the West. That it wasn't about transparency, as it was specifically about attacking the US and the West. And the stuff that Assange released in a lot of those WikiLeaks dumps literally got people killed.
So let me address the Snowden thing first. The difference between Snowden and Assange is Snowden did it better. But Assange was a journalist. This is exactly why he should be exonerated. He was a journalist. Maybe Russia was behind it. Let's go ahead and go with that. Let's just say that's the truth. If Russia was behind it, he's not the guy that should be going down. He was a journalist. He got hold of information and he did what journalists do. And this is the concerning part. I don't even know if I need these visuals, but I have the news stories from it coming out. So I'm just going to show one headline because this is what is this? This is HRW. So you talk about something that should be against Assange. HRW should be against Assange. Human rights, whatever.
Human Rights Watch.
Yeah, Human Rights Watch, because they're Soros funded, right? They should be deep state all the way. And they're still saying this is a danger because what he did is not a violation of Espionage Act. And this is why it's a danger. And this is not even in that article. This was my first thought. You have, just through lawfare, because of a plea deal, he pled guilty to the Espionage Act to get this plea deal. You have expanded the Espionage Act to include journalists putting up information that they come across. And that's the danger of it. No, the person who gave him the information, that person is off. Chelsea Manning, right? Chelsea Manning spent 5 years in jail and she's off. She should be the one taking this if it really was espionage by the Russians. He is a journalist that got the information that is that he did journalist work on. That's the danger here, because we need journalists to be protected. Now we talk about CNN and MSNBC and all these things. That's another string to not have them do their job. There's the money. We take the money out. But, there's also the deep state. You're going to die or you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life if you do your job. That's the danger of it. And that's what I wanted. That's the point I wanted to hammer home. You can think about the person all you want, but the meta theme is we've just tied another string to journalists that cannot report against the government.
Exactly. And this is one of the many infuriating things about the modern time in which we live, is that even when we have arguments and debates, we're rarely, if ever, actually arguing and debating the point, what the thing that actually matters. Because I think Assange should be prosecuted, but not for this. This is the state protecting itself rather than doing what the state is supposed to do when it prosecutes someone, which is stand up for the third party that was hurt. There, more than one person has said that Assange was told before they published this stuff on WikiLeaks, hey, some of this stuff is incredibly sensitive, is going to reveal sources and methods, and those sources are going to get killed. And he said he didn't care. Now he says that's not true, but like I said,
well, if you want to convict him for doxing, then I would accept that.
This is the point I'm trying to get to, is that I'm inclined to believe not Assange, because there are plenty of reports about how Assange is a slimeball creepo that make me not trust him very much when he defends himself versus these other people, more than one people who are reporting this. And so to me, that's like, you can't hide behind the First Amendment if you are a journalist and you expose an undercover cop who gets killed by the mob. No, that's on you. You knew darn well what was likely to happen because you exposed that person.
Yeah, but there's already a law in the book for that. There's already but we're expanding another law.
Yes.
And that's my problem.
Right. It is what the state cared about was, oh no, he exposed secrets that embarrassed us. Now hold on a second. He exposed sources that were then tortured and killed. That's what he's responsible for. But all you care about is the fact that you got embarrassed and that some of the stuff you were doing was shady, if not outright illegal. That's what you care about, and that's what you're making a deal about to make sure that all those DNC hacked emails get off of WikiLeaks. This is infuriating.
That's why I said
multiple levels.
That's why I said him and Snowden did the same thing, but Snowden did it better, because Snowden did it in a way that was only embarrassing to the deep state.
And again, he was exposing a particular program that was brazenly illegal. I had another thought and it's gone now. So
No, yeah, so John 005, if you are listening still, leave us a comment on anything more specific you want us to go into, and we will go into that. But that's kind of an overview that kind of fit in with what we're talking about. And the reason it really fits in is because we have I was talking about the different fires with all the wood in it. A lot of people in the world wouldn't be talking like this if it wasn't for WikiLeaks in the first place. Because the trust in our government went from like 80 to 0 in that time frame when it comes to, are they willing to do this thing that gets their way, assassinate a former president, or fake an assassination to get somebody in power, or all of these things that are floating around the interwebs. There's a very significant portion of the population that would not have even had those kind of thoughts in their mind if it wasn't for WikiLeaks. And so for that, you have to give them credit. For good or bad.
Yeah, it is. My hope is that more good will come from it than the harm that it caused. But again, that requires leaders who are actually going to do stuff instead of just talk stuff.
I think there's already been more good from it because we did have a 4-year term with 0 new wars and 0 false flags and a lot of these things that were what were exposed by that. And I don't think that whole thing happens without the little bit of turmoil that was already started there. All right, so to kind of wrap this up with Assange and the assassination attempt and everything, WikiLeaks kind of set the stage for everybody to question the government realistically. But we have things before that. MK Ultra was a thing. It was a real thing that was exposed by, what did you tell me, church committee?
The
or
church
something?
committee in 1975.
And they got the FOIA request go through, and it came out and it was like, oh, they're doing all these experiments on people. And we talked about previous assassination attempts. And
that is a dark rabbit hole. That I always just, because I'd heard the term before, and then the Y Files, which is a great channel that does good work. They did a couple of episodes, not just on the program, but what I liked about it is they focused on the individuals that were harmed by it. That's stuff straight up evil. That's not, oh, this wasn't, but no, that was straight up evil.
The most famous confirmed example is Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, right? So to those that say, oh, well, if it was really the government, they wouldn't have got a 20-year-old lonely boy to do it. That's exactly the kind of person that was used in those situations. So yeah, there is fuel to those fires because of the things we learned, because of, the church committee, because of Assange, because of Snowden, because of all of these people who went out of their way to expose these things.
And this is where what's going on at the Republican National Convention is interesting to me and made me go, in ways.
Did you know they rescued a potential shooter outside of that already yesterday?
What?
Yeah, some guy trying to post up with his rifle, and they caught him before it started.
Nope, hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
but
that was breaking news in the maybe about 8:30 last night, because it was during the super chats of Timcast.
In the circle that I follow, what I was seeing was a lot of incredulity from more traditional conservatives about who was even speaking and why this or that person was being given a platform to speak. And something that Snowden, Greenwald, Assange, something that they exposed that the right is still struggling with, annoyingly, unfortunately, is this dichotomy between the traditional, strong national security arm of the Republican Party and the conservative movement versus what that means for individual liberty. And we thought we could trust these institutions. We thought these institutions were looking out for the country. No, turns out they're looking out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an element of that as well economically. So I saw a lot of people freaking out that the head of the Teamsters union was speaking at the RNC. That's a big effing deal for anyone who
just knows the
know
history
politics.
of unions and and parties. Yeah.
No, if you know the history of unions and of parties and what he said, yeah, I'm not going to agree with a lot of it, but in a way, you keep bringing up Tim Pool, and he started as an Occupy Wall Street guy. And the frustrating thing about Occupy Wall Street, and the good thing for people like Tim Pool is where it led to is, I at the time I was saying to, old man yelling at the clouds that you guys realize you're saying the same thing as the Tea Party. You're busy calling the Tea Party racist. They're saying the same things you are. They just have a different they just have a different way that they think the problem should be fixed, but you're both talking about the same problem.
Well, modernize it a little bit. The Bernie Bros and MAGA they had identified the same problem. They just had a different solution for it.
Exactly. And so what Trump exposed in 2015 and 2016, and I've referenced Michael Moore of all people talking about this, is the forgotten man. And this is kind of a theme throughout certain parts of our history. There's a great book, I'm brain farting on the author, called The Forgotten Man, about the Great Depression and those people who got left behind because they weren't part of the programs of the New Deal, and all these people got left behind. And that is what Trump recognized, that unfortunately Ross Perot in hindsight was right, but he had a terrible way of explaining it. Because yes, in the ideal, free trade is good for everybody. A rising tide lifts all boats. But we were lied to about it, because it never was free trade. It was special trade for the people who are connected and can exploit it best. And so a lot of people in what is now called the Rust Belt, for a reason, because so much manufacturing has gone elsewhere. And as an aside, there's this dirty lie with there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. Free trade, more libertarian economic people like to point out, oh, that's just a canard. U.S. manufacturing is actually up. Manufacturing output is up because we're just really good at it. But jobs are way down. It's just fewer people can output more because our processes are so good. But that doesn't mean that those people who live in those areas, who worked those jobs. I was behind a truck from Sandusky, Ohio, which amused me greatly when I was driving home last weekend. I was like, hey, Tommy, where you at? Anyway, those
5
people
million brake pads.
So
all because you wanted to save a few pennies.
that is what Trump appealed to. Those were the people he appealed to, was, hey, you got screwed. You were fed this bill of goods that this, that all this free trade was going to be good for everyone, and really it was just good for a handful of elites. And that is what that Teamster president was speaking to. No, I don't agree with everything he said. No, I almost certainly don't agree with his solutions, but it is important that he's pointing out this problem. And this is where I think whoever is running things here has been very clever. So, for instance, another speaker that was annoying people like Matt Walsh was like, just Amber Rose is, slut walk, OnlyFans girl, famous for banging rappers, and for the moral majority kind of conservative, that is ridiculous. But why was she there? And this ties into the JD Vance pick. because JD Vance was a very vocal
Mhm.
never Trumper in 2016. What was the point of Amber Rose's? I mean, she called him, she said, I think in 2018 that this may have been in reference to the Stormy Daniels thing, that he's guilty of sexual assault, that he's a rapist. Okay. She was a hardcore TDSer. And the whole point of her speech was, I was lied to when I was wrong. I ate all these lies. Internalized all these lies and believed them, but now I'm wrong. I think the entire point of this convention and the people who are speaking is to set up JD Vance to be that penultimate speaker,
Mhm.
right before Trump speaks on the last night, and say, this is what we were told about Donald Trump, but here's what actually happened during his presidency.
Mhm.
Hey, all you people out there who have been fed this non-stop, fire hose of lies, what's the actual truth?
Mhm.
You have all these crazy people out there. It's some of in that clip that I showed. It was his second term. He's going to open up camps. He's going to put people in camps. And I'm sitting here going, why didn't he do it at the end of his first term when he could have?
Mhm.
Australia did it. Australia literally created COVID camps and forcibly sent you there. If Trump wanted to start camps, he had the perfect opportunity to do it.
Mhm.
He didn't. So what makes you think he's going to be so horrible in his second term? What has he done that gives you this evidence?
This is right in line with the misrepresentation of the replacement thing, because Amber Rose was confronted on the street by a reporter. Then I saw this video before this all came down, and she was asked as a black person why she would back MAGA because MAGA's racist. And she said, is it really? Because once I really thought about it and got the truth, it's make America great again. Are black people not Americans?
Mm-hmm.
Last I checked, I was an American. And the reporter was just like, and he couldn't answer that because she said, once I realized, he said, make America great again. And once I got out of my head, it wasn't white America great again. It was all Americans. We're Americans too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I mean, what do you say to that other than just the same old rhetoric, realistically?
And I think that is a big part of why Vance is the pick, because Hillbilly Elegy is basically a personalized elementary version of what Murray has been talking about for decades. And we've talked about some of his books about coming apart and some of these other things. That's what Hillbilly Elegy is. It's speaking to those people in a non-academic way.
Yeah, which kind of pulls us back to DEI, because if I'm confronted in academia about my thoughts on DEI, to begin with, what brought it all to being motivated to even start a channel to begin with out of frustration, was the people it hurts the most are poor people. The people it hurts the most are poor people, and that includes Black, Hispanic, Asian, and white poor people, because it is designed to prop up elites. And they patsy, basically, we talked about DEI being racist. The DEI guy writing that headline, it pulls a few middle-class people of color into power positions to prop a policy that hurts all poor people. It brings a few middle-class people into the elites as basically props to basically solidify the elite class. We'll bring a few people in to solidify our position, and we hold poor people out. Case in point, SAT scores. SAT scores were designed to allow people who did not go to premier schools to be able to have an avenue to display their intelligence so they can get into premier universities. despite the old, oh, well, you went to this school, that's why you had a 4 point, because it's easy. No, well, I went to this school and I had a 4 point, but I also had a 1500 SAT.
Or oh, well, you only have a 2.5 GPA. Well, yeah, because I went to a crap school, but I got, 1500 on my SAT, so I'm obviously no dummy.
Yeah.
I have yet to have quality instruction.
And Rob Henderson calls it luxury beliefs, where you're not affected by the decisions you make, but you look good. I think it's deeper than that, by the people who he's giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's all about, oh, I'm doing the right thing, even though it doesn't affect me, so it doesn't register in my brain. Yeah, that's the midwits that are involved with it. But the people up top who want legacy, the Bidens of the world, that's privilege. If you say Hunter Biden is not privileged, then you don't know what privilege is. Okay. Those are the people that want their kids to have legacy. Notice they got rid of SATs without getting rid of legacy in these universities, right? So,
isn't that curious?
Isn't it curious? So the whole point of this whole movement that we call DEI, but it is the whole movement behind it, is to separate the elites from the plebs and to eliminate the middle class, because they'll prop a few people up from the middle class to push that separation even further. So that's, and then you bring JD Vance into it. It was actually a little bit of serendipity this morning when I was getting ready for work. My last client last night wanted country on, and I just hit play while I was getting ready for work. And the first song that came on was Richmond, North of Richmond. and my immediate thought was, we're recording today, and I was like, JD Vance, that's the pool he's supposed to bring in. They're feeling the pulse, and because that song came out of nowhere to be one of the biggest hits in the country, that's one of the reasons JD Vance is on.
My gosh,
the ticket.
I'd heard about the song, but I didn't actually listen to the song until
the guy can belt, man. Yeah.
Until I heard him being interviewed by Peterson. I was like, oh wow, this is big. The guy's talking to Jordan Peterson. This was months ago. So then when I went and I actually listened to the song, the first thing I noticed was the number of views. Go look at how many hundreds of millions of views that have, and then go look at other like really big popular songs, like, go pull up Back in Black. And it has tens of millions of views, and it's like, holy crap, this is big. And as Peterson made the point, the song, yeah, viral things go viral, but it stayed viral because you got talent, son. You can belt it out. His kind of follow-up, I Want to Go Home. Oh man, that is classic, like Hank Williams Sr. stuff of, heck yeah, pour one out. And that is I think what the convention is focused on. And I'd said before that right now my vote is RFK for all the reasons that I've said. But depending on what Trump did with his VP pick, I could be swayed, because that would tell me what direction he's going to go in his second term. The other interesting thing about Vance as the pick that is hopeful is that, according to a couple of different people I listened to who have little birdies inside the Trump campaign, the driving force for Vance was Don Jr. The reason that's important is because it indicates that perhaps Don Jr. and not Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump is going to be one of the driving forces in the administration. That's a big deal, because he is much more of an actual MAGA true believer. Kushner was a Wall Street traditionalist establishment guy. And no, all you lunatic conspiracy, straight up anti-Semitic people out there, he wasn't that, but he was an establishment guy. He was much more of a traditionalist type of person. So a lot of the things that Trump did in his first term that kind of went counter to his MAGA language, you can attribute a lot of that to Jared Kushner.
So you mean Donald Jr.?
No, in his first term.
Oh, his first term. Okay.
So the non-MAGA stuff that annoyed a lot of people in his first term, a lot of that was pushed by Ivanka and Jared.
So tell me if this derails us, but if you're finished kind of with that thought. So when we're thinking of the future, do you think they're trying to set up a legacy where it's Trump, Vance, Don Jr., Don Jr., and whoever?
This is Steve Deace's take on this. I agree with, and I hate it, but it's true, is that because of the lawfare against Trump, because the elites have also lost their mind along with the Democratic Party, they pretty much can't go back to their business. I mean, New York State is still trying to dismantle his entire industry. What Trump is having to do, the new family business is going to be politics, because it has to be, because they can't go back to private industry because of what the lawfare and the DEI, CRT, social credit score type of people are doing. They can't go back to Trump enterprises.
Well, you could if you relocate, like Tesla's doing, like Elon Musk is doing. He moved Tesla and SpaceX from California and Delaware to Texas and is building it up. If he tries, what you could do with Trump Enterprises is try to make Miami the new New York.
Yeah.
You know, you could do something like that. But no, I think this is actually a more logical route because you've been inroad. And everybody says, oh, he's going to be the forever president. He's going to be a dictator. You can have two meanings to that. One that would not fit with the U.S. model, which is he just takes everything over with the military and we're a totalitarian government. Or you have a legacy family like the Bushes did.
Who's in charge of the current administration? One of the characters that is everyone's pointing at is that, you know, and this was even at the beginning of Biden's term, there were people saying this is Obama's third term. What's that if not the forever president? You're pulling the strings behind the scene.
Yeah, so I mean, there's multiple ways of doing it, and one is still democratic, and so the people who are saying he's going to be a dictator might be. I told you language is important. Our democracy, our this, well, you can do it the legal way, and still have that be true. And the problem for the people who are saying it is the legal way would still be the will of the people, which. You know, I don't know where I stand on that because, you know, like I said, like you, I was leaning RFK, though I still need to really go into his VP pick. And now there's the instance with this 3-hour phone conversation RFK had with Trump that a little bit was leaked out that you might be able to have them both if Trump wins. And I don't think Trump will take a support position if RFK wins, and realistically, you look at the long shot on that. Now, we live in Texas. We had the luxury of voting for RFK and not ruining Trump, but it's this with the third party in there, it makes me feel a little bit good because I'm actually in the mood of voting for somebody instead of voting against somebody, because we're all voting against Biden, but there's still two choices we could vote for. And that actually makes me feel a little good. But
a major part of which way I end up going is going to be what Trump says tomorrow night, because he said that he threw out his speech and he's rewriting it after the assassination attempt. And that could be huge. A lot of people don't, I mean, I don't remember. I know because I've read and I've watched things, but I'm way too young. I mean, when Reagan was shot, you know, my primary focus was can we go see Return of the Jedi again? Because that was awesome. It's one of my earliest memories is seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters, and you know, in 1983. But it changed him. He was a religious man, but he became much more so after that brush with death. It's kind of funny actually because he became a much more vocal and ardent supporter of the Christian conservative movement, and Nancy kind of went nutty and went into the spiritualist route, consulting mediums because she was so terrified that something would happen to Ronnie again. But anyway, it will be very telling to see what this does, and how he reacts, and already, uh, I will say it that image of him, you know, with his fist up in the air and blood on the side of his face, yelling at the crowd to fight, you know, and the left's losing their mind over that. And I've heard people on the right say that is the most defining image in America since, uh, you know, take your pick of the firefighters raising the flag and saluting the flag in the rubble and haze of 9/11, or Bush's, you know, I can hear you, and soon the people who knock down these planes are going to hear all of us. That ain't nothing. I mean, that moment might not be as big as those moments, but that was a big moment because one of the very valid criticisms of Trump is that he's a paper tiger. He is a bombastic salesman, but he's not really the tough guy he pretends. He's just pretending to be a tough guy. That was a big deal.
That image.
The Secret Service is trying to rush you off the stage. You don't know that there aren't other threats. And his instinct is to jump up, show the crowd he's okay, and then pump the crowd up.
You do get a moment of shock because a lot of people are like, he's so with it, he's looking for his shoes. I'm like, no, that's actually a shock moment. You know, I might have, all he saw was something hurt and he saw blood. So he doesn't know if he actually got shot in the head or if it was just his ear, because
no idea how bad it is.
In that moment, you don't know how bad it is. What it reminded me of is we've talked about this movie a lot, Saving Private Ryan. In the opening scene, when that soldier has his arm blowed off and he goes back and picks up his arm and starts taking it with him.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I'm going to need this later. You know, it's like,
yeah. And he's just standing there while bullets are flying in a daze, just kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a shock moment. He's like, my shoes, my shoes. You kind of go autistic a little bit for a second. And he's like, I need my shoes. I need my shoes. I need my shoes. And then he gets up and you see him kind of clarify a little bit when he stands up. And then he's like, no, wait a minute, guys. And he puts his fist over and starts saying, fight, fight, fight. And of course, the media says, oh, he's just increasing the rhetoric now. And I'm like, he just got shot, man. He's mad. That shock went to anger. And that, I mean, it's a counterfactual, but what would Biden be doing there? He might not even notice he got shot.
I mean, what we have so far with his reaction is, what do you think about this, Mr. President? What?
Yeah, and almost says "Make America Great Again" on TV. I wonder if someone who was writing the teleprompter put it in there just to see if it would happen, and he caught it. Which would actually give you a little evidence that he's got a little lucidity if someone did that. But it's no. This is why the staged argument keeps going, is because he made the most of that. And he made the most of it without trying. He made the most of it because that's who he is.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know if I want to go down this route or not. I also had thoughts.
Well, it depends, because we're on about an hour and 45-ish.
Okay. Well, I mean, I could
an hour and a half. Yeah.
I could go ahead and piss off everybody by pointing out where I do think there are some serious problems with the convention and the speakers and some other stuff.
Well, let me put one more thing in that point we were just making. This is where you see the good Democrats from the bad. The good pundits from the bad, because I was flipping through the Twitter after this, and you know who Cenk Uygur is, right?
Oh, geez, yes.
Yeah, Young Turk. He's always got the talking points, and he's been one of the never Trumpers from the Democratic side, and the literally Hitler people. His first post after that picture came out and after the whole thing, he said, he's like, I can't agree with this man on anything, anywhere, but you got to admit that was really badass. And it was in response to that picture. So this is where you can tell the legitimate people, because if he can make that statement, then you know what? Maybe I can argue with that man because we just disagree on policy and we disagree on all these other things. Where you got someone like Destiny, who basically, I hope he killed his career. If he didn't kill his career, then there's a lot of people that should be questioned in this world. But he's like, oh, boo-hoo, some guy died when they're trying to kill Hitler kind of thing. And he doubled down and tripled down and quadrupled down as he was getting criticism. And it's like, dude, what is wrong with you, man? What is
Yeah.
wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that is, I didn't know who this guy was, and I'd heard people who the heck is this? I don't know. But
Peterson interviewed him and ripped him apart on accident. Peterson was trying to help him give his point of view, and
when
he was like,
when was this?
2 months ago, maybe.
Okay.
It's a more recent one, 2-3 months ago. And he would just say something, and Peterson's like, well, would you like to restate that for the audience?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, that's why I played that montage from the Day Show. Is what do you expect? I mean, a long running philosophical / historical point of discussion debate has been, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time and kill Hitler? And
No, I
then,
wouldn't.
you know, and add the added wrinkle, the added morality ethic wrinkle of, would you kill baby Hitler? Right. And it's why? Because we all know what he did. Because we all know not just the direct horrors of the Holocaust. You're talking, you know, 6-ish million Jews because there was Jews and 6-ish million other undesirables. So 12-ish million in the Holocaust, but the tens of millions who were killed in the war that he started. And if you're going to call someone literally Hitler, why would you expect anyone to do any? I mean, you're obligated if you actually believe that. So either you're a liar because you're saying this, but you're not actually doing any of it, or you are obligated to do something radical because you're addressing something even more radical.
But so I actually was thinking about that analogy, and I was considering opening with it because I would not, and here's why. Because I would kill billions of people in the process. Because a day off in your parents copulating would change the sperm that became you. And so everybody that's pretty much alive would not be alive anymore. I wouldn't be alive because my grandfather went to the war and came back and married my grandmother. Had they got married 5 years earlier, I wouldn't be alive because the genetic material that makes me me would not be present. So you would kill billions of people and billions upon billions of people in the process of going and killing Hitler. I would save it for an immediate event that was horrific if I could make a quick jump back in time and change things. That's what I would save it for. But if you're talking about going back and killing Hitler, yeah, it's a good little mind experiment because you want to virtue signal or whatever, but you would kill billions in the sake of killing millions.
Law of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Which doesn't apply here because it's not unintended. When you are saying what you are saying and you are saying it that much, this isn't again. Trump's was impeached, and a DC court, a DC prosecutor brought charges against him for what he said on January 6th. It was all about his words inciting action. He was never charged for something he did. It was all about his words. So when are all those people getting arrested? Because there is no way you could not know that. For crying out loud, on the other side, the QAnon nutzos, you're surprised that somebody who actually believed all this took a rifle and went into a pizza place looking for your basement to your secret underground pedo ring? He's trying to protect children in his mind. He has been convinced that right now, as we speak, there are children in this strange underground basement in DC being abused. What do you expect someone to do? And from the reactions we've seen from the left, from the media, but I repeat myself, it's going to happen again. It's going to keep happening. You brought up the guy with the rifle at the RNC that I hadn't heard of. this isn't going to stop until we make it stop by holding people accountable who are destroying our social fabric.
I will say one thing that's kind of hopeful is you're talking about taking wind out of sails after this attempt, and maybe even before it, because this kind of thing would have been organized ahead of time. Is there were lefty protests at the RNC, and I was watching the videos of them compared to a lot of the other demonstrations that have happened over the last 10 years or so. This was pretty much half-assed. It's a group of people chanting their chants going down the road. And realistically, it's like, oh, this is like old school protests. This is cool. Yeah, just speak your mind. That's fine. Everybody get together and march and, make your chants outside of the secure area and everything. And I'm like, this is not what we're used to recently. This isn't Summer of Love stuff. This isn't, Ferguson, kind of stuff. This is old school protests. It was refreshing. I was like, maybe we are switching. Maybe we turned a page
Maybe
here.
the fire is finally starting to die down, and it's just the small core of nutcases.
Yeah, it wasn't black bloc. It wasn't any of that. It was just people marching down the street like the old school feminists used to do. The old, it was cool. It was fine.
So, here's my final thought for today, because I've decided I'm going to save my fire and brimstone and raking the right over the coals until next week, because I should wait until we see what Trump has to say to put a lid on the convention, and then maybe I'll rake the right over the coals for some stuff that's pissing me off. But so here's my final thought on all of this when we're talking about the assassination attempt and we're talking about media culpability and whatnot. I had this thought when I was listening to this to Glenn Beck read this letter from the daughter of the fire chief who was killed. I think she should Nick Sandman these people. Remember, he reportedly was settled multiple news organizations, hundreds of millions of dollars. I want this family of this man who was killed to do the same thing to all these news outlets. That is a way they could and should be held responsible. You called this man and his supporters literal Nazis. What did you think was going to happen? We might not be able to hold you criminally liable for this death, but we damn sure can hold you civilly liable for this death.
Well, that brings forward a post from, and he doesn't post much on X anymore, Alex Jones. People were making those same statements. And he's being very intellectually consistent because he thinks he should not be responsible for the settlement he has to pay.
Yeah.
He made a statement formally that was like, I hate what I made a mistake and I'm paying for it, but we should all have free speech. We should all be able to say the things we want and then have the public square take us down. Not this. And he says,
and this is what a case like that should decide, is that the difference is, however repugnant I find Alex Jones, what he was doing was very clearly expressing an opinion. Yes, it was hurtful to people, but he was very clearly, the point that would have to be adjudicated in a court is calling someone literally Hitler and his supporters literally Nazis. Is that or isn't it a call to action? Because to me, the argument I would make if I was to take on this case for this family, my case would be that language is a call to action. You don't have to literally say, and so you should get a gun and go stop these people.
That's where I have trouble with this, because if you look at history, the person who tried to kill Hitler with a bomb or something is considered a national hero.
Tom Cruise, yes.
even though he didn't succeed, right? And so this guy this 20-year-old might be a history buff on that kind of thing and said, I can be a national hero if I do this. So there is that part of it. But at the same time, if you can't use to make a really benign thing about it, is go fight, win, go fight, win. When your football team is going out there, that doesn't mean get in a fight. It means go fight figuratively for the win, right? Literally Hitler. Okay, well, we're trying to paint this guy as this. Now, what might be a good product of this is not necessarily just everybody paying money and being punished for it, but maybe the answer is we need to make it more clear what's editorial and what's news. Because, yeah, the little thing on the bottom of the news article that says this is an opinion piece, that's not clear. This is in the opinion section. When people try to sue Rachel Maddow about her stuff with the vaccine mandates and stuff, they're like, the court ruled no reasonable person would think she's actually reporting news there. It's her opinion. And it's like, no, actually, they tuned into MSNBC to get the news. So maybe we take opinion pieces out of the news. So maybe that's part of it. But it gets ratings, right? No one actually does tune in for the news. They tune in for the things they want to hear in a very flamboyant manner, right? So maybe that's the change that needs to come out of this. We need to completely separate news from entertainment. And so, okay, so this is your news channel. This is MSNBC News. This is MSNBC editorial channel. Which one do you tune into? You want to tune into the editorial channel? Go ahead. Because you're going to get your echo chamber of one of you. MSNBC News, guess what? If there is a certain degree of lack of facts here, you are held responsible for that. So maybe something like that. But I'm with Alex Jones. Not only should they not be prosecuted for this, even civilly, but he should have all his charges dropped for his opinion. Now, I do like, coming from this, the good nature of people. And this is where this family is getting taken care of. They've already raised, including Trump himself and all of the people we follow. I'm assuming Dace is in on it and everything. Poole is in on it. I know that they've already raised like over $5 million for these families, including the other people that were shot that weren't killed.
Yeah, because there were other injuries. I remember the one fatality because that really stood out.
Yeah,
but
I know the other day they
injuries as well.
Poole came
and
on.
I think a couple of them were pretty serious injuries.
Yeah, Poole came on. And he said every super chat's going to these families, and then he got on and said, and he undercut YouTube a little bit, and he said, but here's the GoFundMe's for them because YouTube takes 35%. So if you want more money to go to them, here it is. You can send your super chats, but
suck it, YouTube.
Yeah. But they're being taken care of the way it should be. Community, not lawfare. And so if there's a change, it's a change in the system. It's not just punishing certain individuals.
Yeah.
For acting in the system they were in. That's what I should say.
Well, we should cut it off there. We've been rambling for a while. Hopefully we said something interesting and unique for somebody. Next week, I guess we'll see what else happens. But the main thing, my main homework is going to be what does Trump say in his speech at the RNC to close things out.
Yeah, and again, hopefully we showed it a little bit today, although I know it wasn't the subject of the whole video on Assange, but we do respond to your comments. There's first of all, there's few enough that we can respond to everyone. We had one from on our Invention Secrecy Act that I appreciate the pun. He said patently absurd, but then he went on and railed on it. And there's another pun there if you have seen the comment, because his profile picture is Rael from the Raelian movement, and I hope that's a joke. If not, then actually post some more, because maybe we can have interesting discussion come out of it. But if anybody should rail on the Invention Secrecy Act, it should be the Raelians, because the whole thing is extraterrestrial technology with them. So yeah, that actually might bring up very interesting discussion. And we got Wheel of Time Friday. We've got a few comments from Isomorphic. Scott, where are you? I hope we didn't tick Scott off in some way, or I hope he's okay. We'll open with that next
Oh.
time in case he doesn't watch all the way till the end of these. But
Maybe it's, well, he does live in Texas, and Texas has stopped free heating, so maybe he's
maybe he's out of power.
curled up next to an
'Cause
AC vent
I
with a
think he
bag
said
of
East
ice for a
Texas.
pillow.
And
Oh
East
yeah.
Texas, it was still the Cat 1 hurricane when it got there. And East Texas is full of big, vulnerable trees that fall on power lines.
I finally saw a clip. I've heard the name. I finally saw a clip of Mattress Mac just tearing into the power company.
Yeah, you know what? This is
I love you, man.
except the power companies are doing. They got people. This is the little mini rant. They got people coming in from all over the country.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
were people from Washington State here in our town
Mhm.
doing stuff, and our mayor had to come out and say, "Hey, you're part of the problem here because people are pulling guns on these guys and attacking them when they're taking a break in between doing all the work you need to do in some of these other areas like Galveston and Lamarck and all of the inner city areas and stuff." And I'm like, there's a reason you're not first.
Yeah.
Because when they come to my town, we're giving them lunch and water and washing their clothes. We had a group of ladies from our town lining up to take clothes from the linemen to wash them for them so they can have them the next day. You know what? If you want to be fast, if you want it to come to your place faster, like don't get in their way. Like be respectful. That kind of thing. And I'm sorry if you're without power right now at this point, you're part of the problem if you're attacking the linemen.
You know what we just talked about with the money being raised for these victims. It's, hey, let's be neighborly. What a concept.
What a concept. Yeah. So
right.
so yeah, it's not just now the bureaucracy of the power companies is part of the problem, but the linemen themselves and the workers are not the problem. Yeah.
All right. Well, we will see you on Friday for Wheel of Time. And if there's anything else you want us to talk about regarding this or any of the other political nonsense that's going
Or
on
a
next
random
Wednesday,
social issue that you
or
might think we have insight into.
Oh, geez, that's actually, yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, and then everything got derailed with the politics, is Lauren Southern on trigonometry was really damn depressing.
It's on my queue. I haven't listened to it yet.
So it's
maybe
we can talk some of that. Maybe I'll get a little fire and brimstone there.
Well, last time I saw her, I wasn't impressed. So I'll give it another chance on Trigger, and we'll see. We'll see if they bring better out of her. So.
Yeah, it was. I think they did, because those guys are really good at interviewing, and so take a listen to that, watch that, and we may talk some of that gender, marriage, trad crap. We may talk some of that next time as well.
All right. Well, I guess we'll talk to y'all later. No disclaimers needed this time.